Sweet Sarah, I'm so excited to have you here. It is
I
my second episode in a row where I'm interviewing someone I actually know. So this is super fun. Thank you for being here.
Oh, that's so fun. Well, I'm really happy to be here and yeah, speaking with your community, with your gorgeous community and with you. And any time that you're on my calendar, I'm extra happy because I just know it's going to be a magical time.
I love you so much. Thank you. And I feel exactly the same. And I'm like making the sad face and tone because we met a little over a year ago, but we live when I was still in California, we would practically be neighbors. So
Yeah,
I'm bummed
I know.
that I didn't know that. We could be having all these conversations for years now.
Well, it helps with like, I don't know, I feel like the breadcrumbs of life and synchronicity where you're like, oh, I was there too.
Right? It is. Thank you for saying that. It's so true because we have these opportunities and we get more information and we think like, oh, I wish I would have known that then. But at the same time, we are living in this certainty that we will not miss out on what's meant for us. And that's such an exhale.
It's so true. It's funny. I don't know if I told you this, but um, actually when I was kind of going through a dark night of the soul journey and, just in a lot of uncertainty, I was living in an area that I didn't want to live in, which was Sacramento,
Mm.
California,
Hmm.
and I was heartbroken, going through a breakup, and I was, just trying to figure out my career. And anyways, I started working with like a lot of flower essences and also just talking to angels during that
Mm.
season. And an angel came to me and told me that I would live in Saratoga. And
Okay.
at the time I didn't know where Saratoga was. I actually did a Google search and I was like, how would I like live there? How would any of this make sense? And what was so interesting is that 8 years later, I ended up moving with my now husband, you know, to this gorgeous small cottage in Los Gatos, which right on the border of Saratoga. And
I
so,
love
anyways,
it.
going back to your point, like if it's meant to you, meant if it's meant for you, it will come.
Right. And it's so, there's so much relief in that. And
Yeah.
it's beautiful. And it's beautiful that the angel didn't say that you're moving to Gilroy, but you get to be in Saratoga, Los Gatos. It's so fun. And listener, if you don't know these places, I lived in Saratoga when I was in California. So we would have had a lot of fun, but that's okay.
Yes.
We're
Well, we
having
get to
fun
have
now.
fun meeting up in other magical places. So,
Yes, very, very true. So I would love to kick this off by asking, how are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
Ah, I love this question. And honestly, what comes to me is podcasting. That's my yes. Isn't that fun?
Yes. Yes, it is, because I remember conversations before you had one.
Yes, I know. And you were so much of, not only my cheerleader, but also like a guide and a person like, yeah, you should do this. Way before that was on my radar. But honestly, it was my next, like obvious next step.
Right.
And, sometimes when we're so close to it, we can't see it.
Yeah.
So thank you for being that person for me and cheering me along as I've been podcasting and in the early steps and doing something, totally new and unknown.
But also so familiar and exactly what you were doing when you were not doing the thing that you thought you should be doing. You know, you
Yeah.
were writing a book or wanting to write a book and wanting
Yes.
to like set time aside to write. And we would be having these long, beautiful, expansive conversations of you talking about finding the time with a young daughter to do the writing and grow your business. And that's when I said, you should just talk. And then you can get the transcript of what you just said and you can turn it into your book. And then you've got two things done. Like, it's so, I love the beauty of community is that we get this pulled out perspective. We see very clearly for everybody else, and we can
Yes.
receive what they see for us as well.
Yes. And I think so much, so far of podcasting, what I've realized is I'm beginning to really clarify what it is. What is it that I have to say? And that's a journey. I think so much, we both err on, are recovering perfectionists and, so much of, um, my professional career is about getting it right and being the
Mm-hmm.
expert. And that's been, I think, one of the biggest gifts of podcasting is kind of tearing that down
Mm-hmm.
and realizing that, this isn't serving me. It's also not really even serving my clients.
Right.
And really showing up in, the wholeness of who I am is I think the greatest gift. The more that we can step on that. So that's where, podcasting has just been an absolute saying yes to myself. And, when I pull up, when I pick up the mic, I feel like I can I can show up, sure as a professional fiduciary, but I can also show up as, a woman, a wife, a mother, a sister, just a caring, somewhat informed citizen and, and help people along, the journey. So their
Right.
journey. And so I think, my professional path has always kind of been at the heart of leading from a place of service.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when we're building a business, when we're serving others, that can, I don't want to say you can lose it, but you can kind of forget that. So that's where podcasting is just only added so much like fuel and passion for the work that I do. And and also just my life. And, also being a mother of thinking, for my daughter, like when she's a woman, or when she's grown, hopefully modeling that, you get to design your life the way that you want.
Right. Right.
Aw.
And your friend Wendy will model that for her too. And you're
Yes,
modeling
you
it for
do.
Amelia. You're modeling it for Amelia. And I love everything that you said. I love that, I'm not sure about you, but I'm for sure an external processor. So I
Yeah.
have ideas. I know what I think, but I really know what I think once I start talking about it. And this has given me these beautiful, expansive opportunities, sometimes 5 hours in a row on recording days where I am not the same woman in the afternoon that I was in that morning. And
Oh,
it feels so good. Thoughts grow as they are shared. And we're just
yes.
having these beautiful, expansive experiences. You in conversations with people that are associated with your industry, and me with conversations of any woman saying yes to herself in a big and small way. So it's very eclectic in the topic. But what I love for you and your podcast is because your industry, it wasn't just your personal conditioning that made you think you needed to do it perfectly. That
Yeah.
is highly regulated, highly monitored,
Yes.
watched by highly opinionated people in the families of your clients. All of
Yeah.
these
And of
things.
course, it should be, right? Like we need to have that structure.
Absolutely, absolutely. But what I love about the podcast for you and for your client is that it offers this long form content, this opportunity for them to get to know you, by listening to you have conversations with other people that, of
Yeah.
course, they wouldn't be eavesdropping on your conversation in your regular connection time. So it's helping people know that not only on paper are you the fiduciary for them, but they've connected with you before you even met them.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I haven't had any clients from the podcast yet,
That you
and
know
we'll
you
see
will.
what comes to be. But yeah, I think so. I mean, really what inspired it starting off. I mean, you know a lot of the behind the scenes stuff before I launched, but it was really following kind of this instinct that, you know, our estate plan can really, what I think is it could be a catalyst for transformation. And I'm still kind of clarifying, why that is. But I think at this point, I've had close to 50 conversations. I only do interviews, so I don't do solo episodes. And through talking to all different experts, whether they're attorneys or financial advisors, or I've had a lot of um, professionals that, serve in like end of life care.
Hmm.
So hospice nurses and what is it called? Death doulas.
Yes.
Um, and kind of through all of it, what I'm realizing is that, our estate plan is really just the starting, the starting place. And um, and it can be so much more. And of course, I think that the other piece, is that in our day-to-day life, how we make people feel, I think ultimately is our biggest legacy.
Yes.
So I kind of come back to that of, and again, that's where my journey, my professional journey really started, was being witness to a loved one's final 3 days of life. And I was forced into the present moment. It was a total spiritual experience for me. And that I honestly is, I think, one of the greatest gifts of death. I don't know if you've been with, I don't know if we've talked about
Mm-hmm.
it
No,
before.
we haven't. But yes,
Yeah.
I have been there.
Yeah. And it's like, if you're really witness and present to someone in that, sacred time, I mean, for me, there was only just leaning in.
Yeah.
And I think more and more people are seeing that as an opportunity. And I think a lot of that is, there's been more conversations like this. Death doulas, that's been like a new kind of profession popping up. Um, and still, I think with masses,
Right.
collectively, we're more of a anti-death culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's been, I think, also one of the big gifts of podcasting and this
Right.
journey, this new journey that I'm on.
Oh, well, I love your concept of that the estate plan can be transformational. And what comes to me in that statement is the transformation comes through conversation. Because when you
Yeah.
have a plan, I mean, so many people don't,
Yeah.
right?
One
So
in one
just,
in three people in the US have an estate plan in place.
right? So creating that plan takes one level of communication. Evolving that plan through the stages of your life requires more conversations.
Yes.
And I feel like conversation is a key to intimacy with these people that are our loved ones. And there can be, you don't want to be grieving the loss of this person and resentful of
Yeah.
how they did not prepare and left you with all of this stuff to deal with. It's just, it's this balancing of emotion that what seemingly uncomfortable action protects you from is a lot of frustration for the people that are here after you've
Yeah.
transitioned.
Yeah. No, it's exactly that. And, conversations and like storytelling, that has been one of kind of the unexpected things that's come to me through these conversations that I realize like, you know, there's an art of to storytelling and conversations. I wouldn't say I have a gift for it at all.
Well, the fact that you're aware that
I
that has a role in this genre, in this profession. I've never
Yeah.
heard someone talk about estate planning and storytelling at the same time. So, can you say more about that, please?
Yeah, well, I love the synchronicity of this because it actually is the episode that aired this week on the podcast. And it's, of course, we shouldn't say that we have favorites, but it really was one of my personal favorite conversations.
Mm,
And it was with a woman. Her name is Yvonne Caputo, and she's now written two books. One book is called Flying with Dad, and then the second one is Dying with Dad. And sitting down and talking with her, it just connected so many dots for me where I was like, this is exactly what it's about. And she really didn't have a close relationship with her dad. And as he was kind of declining and she began to be more and more involved in kind of his day to day life,
mhm.
she really started with just asking him questions about his past and history. And he ended up sharing so much about his his life and also being in World War II.
Wow.
And he was a pilot, and that's the first book is really covering all of that. But it was really kind of a doorway. And I think her willingness and to being open, not coming to him with expectation
Mhm.
and also curiosity, it changed their relationship. And from there, then she began to ask questions like, Dad, do you have, a power of attorney in place?
Mhm.
Have you written your healthcare wishes? And he didn't. And she helped support him getting those documents in place.
Right.
And, it was conversation after conversation. And their relationship totally transformed by the end of his life.
Mm,
And it was like, this is exactly, kind of what inspired the podcast is that, sure, we can go and meet with an attorney and get our estate plan in place, but it could be so much more. And having kind of that willingness and that openness to have difficult conversations, whether it's with our aging parents or if it's with our children. There's just so many sticky spots with estate planning, and I get why people avoid it. I mean, you've got to look at your own mortality, you've got to think about your money and assets, and you also it brings up kind of the family unit
right.
and who gets what. And that's where kind of downstream I see, that's my professional lens of
Right.
like I've administered trusts and estates and I see what works well and what doesn't.
Mm,
And I would say most attorneys, they're at least in California, their goal is to just keep you out of probate. Well, there's been plenty, most of my cases. We're not in court and, we administer the trust. But I can tell you, I have a lot of dysfunctional families and a lot of families still torn apart. Children never understanding why, why, their brother got something and they didn't, or not understanding why their funds stayed in trust while their siblings didn't get that. And there was never the conversation to begin
Mm.
with. And so I think that that's where, going back to where we started of why this is saying yes is me really kind of stepping into, that through the decade of doing this work, that there is a lot of wisdom that I can share
Yes.
with the collective of, really bringing it home of why we need to put these get our affairs in order, but also where we're continuing to have these conversations. And I think having these conversations and to your point of continuing to
Right.
as things evolve, that is a big key and success for families. The ones where they're like, "Oh, we did it and we're going to, we did the estate plan, we're going to shove it in a drawer and not look at it again or think about it again for the rest of our lives." Things aren't going to go well. Yeah.
I have so many questions. Um,
Okay. Great.
that's so beautiful. And I love it. And of course, I'm just such a fan of using your words anyway in
Yes.
whatever is happening because knowledge is power. And if
Yeah.
you think that you're going to withhold information or not have a courageous conversation because you think you're doing that other person a favor, it's that's not always the case. And we learn more when we're co-creating this experience because just because we're not talking about it doesn't mean I'm not thinking about it and making up an entire narrative of what I think you think about what I think about this. And which just wastes so much
Exactly.
time. And like you said, leads to unmet expectations, whether they're reasonable or unreasonable, they are still unmet because there was no dialogue or there was a perception that was allowed to live on because it was never challenged or investigated.
Yeah. No, it's exactly that, Wendy. You know.
So, I mean, I want to know what you've seen that worked, but I kind of also am curious, what have you seen that doesn't work? Because I probably am closer to like what your experience has been, just because I mean, they do require courageous conversations. And I can have those all day long with a large number of people. And there's a small group of people that I am very uncomfortable having those kinds of conversations with. And they're the ones that, I have to have these kinds of conversations.
Yeah, well, it's also I just also want to say that what I find specifically about these conversations is it's kind of like a Goldilocks example.
Totally.
It's like, you know, and this is where I think building a team and working with professionals does help most people,
Hmm.
because there's not going to be like this cookie cutter estate planning
Hmm.
document or like
Right.
this, this is what everyone should do.
Yeah.
I mean, just for
You
me,
can plan your own wedding.
yeah,
Should you plan your own wedding?
yeah.
I don't know about that. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, and even like a lot of families that I work with, they have children with special needs.
Mm.
And depending on that, child, and it could be an adult child at this point,
Right.
um, on their disability and their capability of understanding things. Sometimes it makes sense of bringing them in on the conversation so that they're aware. And sometimes this, that's not helpful. It's going to only add stress and anxiety. So that's just
Hmm.
like one example where it's like each of everyone's lives are so unique, and we have kind
Totally.
of our different family system. And also just thinking about, estrangement has just been on the rise, for
Mm.
especially for, I think, millennials, and my family included. Um, and so even in those relationships, I mean, are you going to force a are you going to force a conversation with someone that's not really in your life? Most likely that's not going to be the case. So, I want to first kind of say that is that, that having the conversation with everyone, you know, um, I think is not kind of the point, but it's, saying enough, but not too much. So figuring out what that
It's a
is.
dance for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And then it's, kind of, I think building your team of professionals and also I think what the better term is building your team
Hmm.
because I can use examples and paint a picture, but this is for people that are working with a professional fiduciary. And let's be honest, most people don't need a professional fiduciary. um, Most people are going to be naming um, a family member most likely or an entrusted friend in these roles, whether it's for healthcare decision making or the financial power of attorney or trustee or executor like after you pass. So with all of that, I think it's really also reflecting on those, we call them proxies, like the people
Hmm.
that will be acting on your behalf, of really reflecting, is this person really able to do the job? And if they are able, are they willing to?
Sure.
And so you would be surprised that people more times more often than not, or
Hmm.
maybe I shouldn't say more often than not, but I think far too often people are never even having that conversation of letting people know, oh, you're my you're named in my power of attorney.
Right. And that's because we were best friend. You were my maid of honor or something. And then I haven't seen you for 25 years. And now my close friend here or my adult child doesn't have the power
Yeah,
that makes
yeah.
sense for them.
Yeah. 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 I had actually a conversation on the podcast. Her name's Rachel Donley, and she acts more as a consultant for families that are administering trusts and estates. So she's not stepping in the role that I do. She's more working alongside non-professionals and helping them manage it. But she told me of a story where she got a call and the ex-wife was named as the executor, and she had not talked to her ex in over 20 years. I mean, this woman was just like flabbergasted. Like, what? Bless her heart. She accepted the role, but she
Wow.
hired Rachel.
Right. Oh my gosh.
So yeah, those
Okay.
those are kind of a lot of the big pieces where it's like, yes, we want to get our documents in place, of course, but we really need to think through the plan. And again, this is, I think, why I wanted to have conversations, like this, and and have the podcast, is because I assumed attorneys were talking this through with their clients, but they're not. I think more times are not having this conversation.
Right. And I think there are so many reasons for that. I
Yeah.
think there's a portion of it, depending on who the client is, but there's a portion of being very mindful that all your time with your attorney is very expensive. So there's even this mindset of you got to just do what they say and be in there. And, even a doctor, you're getting some diagnosis and you cannot retain all the information. And you probably
Yes.
had more questions, but it's all just such an awkward, unfamiliar situation. Like, unless you golf with your lawyer every other week, you probably don't know how to have a practiced, effective conversation.
That's such a good point. I think that's a lot of it too. And because there are a lot of attorneys I speak with, like, oh, we do say this, or these are conversations that are had, but it just doesn't land for whatever reason, whether it's like all this information's hitting that,
Right.
the client all at once. And it's like we can only process so much.
Hmm.
But I think that intimidate, most people are intimidated by attorneys. Um, and, hopefully that's something that I hope that does evolve, over the next, few decades. I think more so attorneys are, especially estate planning attorneys. I love them. Really. And
Right.
at
Just
least in
because it's a
California, I would
different,
say
yeah.
that the standard is it's more of a flat fee is what I'm finding with estate plans. So hopefully that gives people some peace of mind of like,
Well,
not
I mean, that's just a helpful piece of information because I
yeah.
wouldn't think that any attorney doesn't bill by the quarter hour because I saw that movie, The Firm, and I have a divorce lawyer that I know when I send an email, I better mean it because it's not inexpensive, So there's just these narratives that we create. I mean, we're not just creating it about our parents so that we can be upset when we finally find out what the will says. Like, we are creating these narratives about
Yeah.
everybody all the time. And
It's
the
funny that
only,
you bring up movies because I think, that's a lot where, I'm talking about, after someone's death,
Mhm,
once, I'm acting as trustee and administering their estate, um, there's so much where there's like this misinformation and there's this
totally.
huge disconnect of what's going to happen. And it's exactly that. Like what's portrayed in movies? It's the
Right,
reading of the will. There's a sit down family meeting and, the stoic attorney walks in, and that is not at all how it's done. We,
right.
we don't have
Just
a reading
just
of
like the
the
wedding
will.
planner. People are
Yeah,
like, "Oh, it's like the movie?" Like,
not really.
I have a headset, but I don't leave with the groom. So I'm not sure what about the movie you're likening my profession to.
That's so funny. Yeah, there's not a reading of the will. And that's I think also where, going back to, my family is in the planning phase and talking to people proactively. This is not how we should be thinking about estate planning. It shouldn't be this like surprise unveiling of who gets what. You
Right,
should really be having family meetings ultimately, and they should be regular. It shouldn't be a one-time thing. So
right.
one of my kind of, you know, to-dos that I'd like to do this year is have a death dinner.
Ooh, say more. I'm all about a dinner.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of how I see it, at least starting at this point, is inviting kind of all the people, that are kind of part of the plan,
Hmm.
um, over for dinner, and then me and my husband kind of just having the
Love
conversation
it.
and gathering people and really just talking what our intention is. At this point, our daughter's only 2. Uh, so,
Right.
our intention and wishes, it's really going to be focused on her and her lifespan if God forbid something happened to us both.
Right.
So I
Oh my
think
gosh,
just,
I'm totally hosting death dinners now. Check the
yeah,
website, friends. You can book your
yes.
death dinner here because that is so beautiful. You get to share from a jovial place what your intentions are. People get to digest that information, ask a question in real time, and be witnessed.
Yeah.
And everyone is being witnessed to what they heard. And I mean, even if you had everyone, can you please reflect back to me what you believe this role that I've just assigned you is? Just because you get to know, and then on the way home she says, I can't believe you thought that he said that. We were all sitting right there. That's not how it happened. Like it would just like you're
Yeah.
solving, this is like world peace kind of stuff.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's exactly that. It's exactly that. And then also, what I see, what I'm hoping is that this becomes a regular thing in our family that
Mhm.
we do. I
Yeah,
don't know, maybe it's not every year, but every few years, maybe we're gathering that team in place, and the team's probably going to be changing over the years.
it should. It
Yeah.
should,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, even and this is so far, down the priority list in estate planning, but just this even annual check-in, which I was doing with my dad, with my parents, but with my
Yeah.
dad because he was the keeper of the information after my ex-husband's mom died, and he didn't have any of that information. Like he had to
Yeah.
get every piece of information. And so
It's so
using that
hard.
experience to tell my dad, listen, I'm not going to steal your money, but you need to put one of us on your bank accounts just so that
Yeah.
we just don't we can't even have access to information. And I want to know every year you just send me a document that has your, like, what credit cards do you have and what's your password, and just all of these things that are hard to find the answers to.
That no, that's such a great point. I'm sorry that your ex went through that because, and I'm
Oh,
assuming you guys went through that because it's just
yeah.
it can be a
And
huge mess and it's a huge time suck. I mean, it's just
right.
a lot and most of us live very busy full lives now. So
Mhm.
it's just the time that it takes, I think people don't. I mean, even just Xfinity is my favorite example. I mean, I've spent hours and hours just trying to close an account for
Sure.
clients. They're one of the vendors to work with.
Right.
Things that
Right.
you just don't expect until you're going through it. So that's
Right. I mean,
where,
it's like, don't please do not know your Apple ID because you
yeah.
can't even,
Yeah, the
like,
digital aspect assets is like a huge piece. And then also just assets. I think that's the thing. Like with when it comes to like debt, you can run a credit report.
sure.
That's pretty, easy. And people are also great about following up and making sure that they're paid.
Right.
Especially once you die. But with assets, we don't have that. There's not like this database where you can run, an asset report for people. So that's,
Right, because that would be what divorce lawyers would be
yeah,
accessing. That
right?
would be actually helpful, wouldn't
Yeah.
it? That would be
Yeah, so
helpful.
that's actually a big piece, for clients that work with me in the planning phase. I ask for, their whole list of assets and then I also tell them, if, if you open up a new checking account, for example,
Hmm.
please let me know that. Or if sometimes like your custodian will change. My 401k, it just moved from Vanguard to this other
Yeah,
company and anyways, so all of that is good and also why we should have kind of these again tending to this area of life. Even with that, the beneficiary designations didn't transfer over. So go back and check.
right. 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 It's true. Because that just happened for me as well. And I need to change my beneficiary anyway, but
Yes, I'm sure.
there, right. But otherwise, there isn't one.
Yep.
Yep. So,
That's a huge point. So this is exactly why I get so lit up and inspired because these are the kind of things that I think people assume will happen with
mhm,
their attorney and once they get their estate plan in place. But no, it kind of falls on you as a person. And that's where I see there is a huge gap between what an estate planning attorney can do or will do versus then what falls on to the client. And I think a lot of times people there's a lack of understanding and education.
sure.
So
Well, and just the
again,
maintenance around it, right? Which is
yes,
conversation. Again, back to a wedding. Just because it's easy to correlate this, we don't just have a wedding. You can't
no,
just like, oh, here's 20 years after our wedding day. That requires maintenance. You have to be married. You have to have conversation. You have to grow. You have to evolve. You have to change things. It's not just because you did this one and done thing that it's going to
yeah,
be
thrive.
enough, right? Like
Yeah.
it was the best day of your life then, but you still got to show up for the
Yes.
relationship.
Yeah, I love that you're already kind of connected to that because that's been like kind of the big thing coming through of beginning to see this like tending to a garden where
Yeah.
it's like this is really, like weeds are gonna pop up. That's not something that we shouldn't anticipate and expect. And so, just like that example of like, oh yeah, the custodian changed for my 401k and let me double check and make sure my beneficiaries are that transferred over. Oh, guess what? It didn't.
Mhm.
Those are kind of easy, things that I think we can have on our radar. So maybe just on an annual basis, we're just double
Yes.
checking those things so that, at ultimately what it's about at the end of the day, whether you're, going through a health crisis or you're, you know, you've just been transferred or referred to hospice, you can
Mhm.
really spend that time with your loved ones and not
Yeah.
be worrying about this stuff. Like,
Right.
because that's what's really sad. I mean, when your time is that limited and also
Sure.
your energy and you're in pain, it's like, who
And
wants to
if you're
be?
no longer lucid,
Yeah, well,
I
that's a
mean,
whole,
that's what
yeah.
happened to my dad. He died during of COVID,
Oh, oh, he
but
did. I didn't
yeah.
know that. I'm so
Hmm.
sorry.
Thank you. But he didn't go to the hospital soon
Oh,
enough. So
oh,
he didn't have enough oxygen to his brain for several days. So then when he got to
oh,
the hospital, he did not know who he was or where he was. And like he thought they were trying to kill him. And because he would
wow.
call out in the night thinking my mom was going to walk in the room, but it was a stranger in full PPE. So,
Oh,
you know, he then thought he was Matt Damon in what I can't even think now of those movies, where, but he's like, now he's a special agent and he's got to karate chop his way out of this thing. And he was
oh,
in the Veterans Hospital, which they have
oh,
some different rules. So they
yeah, I'm
restrain
sure.
you. They restrain you when you are
Oh,
doing that.
when you're combative,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
and
it
were
was
you weren't
just,
able to visit him or were,
and I was in Massachusetts and he was in California, but my mom wasn't able to visit him.
oh,
Nobody could visit him. So
that's so
I
sad.
had I'm like, I go into business mode,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
it's like,
I'm
okay,
not
I've
surprised
got this.
just
Like,
knowing
you go
you.
home, right? It's like, I'm gonna cry during a commercial, but not now. I'm all business.
Yeah.
But the beauty of this time was I was on the East Coast, so I would call at 6 a.m., 5 or 6 a.m., and so I'd get the person who's actually going to tell me something because it's 2 o'clock in the morning. And they would tell me so much about what was happening. And my dad was a pastor.
Oh,
He was like cussing at
oh,
people and I mean,
yeah,
so he
it's
was like not, and
totally changed. Yeah.
I'm giggling because it was just not him. And also, like, he would have thought he was pretty tough, like, and sassy
Hmm.
doing that. So, what ended up happening was he was released to hospice
Oh,
because they needed the bed. He had
oh,
been in ICU for 2 weeks. And so they told us that he had gone through the protocol and it was safe for him to go home. And so I was getting on a plane that night to be there the next day. And the hospice nurse called me and said, "You can't come. He has full blown COVID still. I can't," the hospice guy said, like, "I can't even go in and do what I need to do because I've been in there for 10 minutes and I can come for 15 minutes once a week." That was the
what?
hospice care, 15 minutes once a week. And he said, "You can't go. If you come here, you can look at him through the sliding glass door. But if you come in this house, you can't get back on a plane," because it was before the vaccines. So
Wow.
it was just unbelievable. And he had one beautiful, lucid moment at
Oh,
home where my mom was putting some like ice on his
uh-huh.
lips And
Uh-huh.
he said, "Thank you, honey." And then that
Oh,
was the only comment because I would talk to him on the phone and he wouldn't
yeah,
know
engaged. Yeah,
who I
yeah.
he knew who I was at the beginning, but a couple days later he didn't. And then so there were two beautiful nurses from their church that
Oh,
came and helped my mom. They traded off days and
wow.
and
And they were
he
more just like volunteers.
I mean, they were nurses at
Uh-huh.
a hospital, they worked at hospitals, but they just came in to help my mom, yeah, to volunteer because they went to my dad's church.
Wow.
And so they were there to help my mom, but she was on her own. So he would be very uncomfortable and she'd say, "But I have still 2 more hours before I can give him the medicine." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, give him the medicine. It's fine. You can't,
Yeah.
like, it's just so hard." And
Oh,
she was a kept woman. He had all the information. So it
wow.
just makes, even in the sweetest, saddest, they're all sweet, tragic stories. And
Mm-hmm.
I tried to get that information from him, even sharing what had happened with
Mm-hmm.
Keith's mom. And he
He
still
wouldn't.
couldn't give up the goods, couldn't, because I think it was the facing your mortality. It
That's all of
was,
that. Yeah. That
I
generation,
don't want
it's
to,
just, it's
yeah,
hard. Yeah, that's
yeah.
hard.
Thank you for letting
Oh,
me tell you that.
oh, thank you for
You're such a
sharing.
good
No, it's
listener.
just, yeah, yeah, the pandemic was just a lot, especially that. So that was still 2020 because it was before
Yep.
we
Yeah,
had
November.
vaccine.
Hmm.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. And your
Thank
mom,
you.
I mean, I'm sure she is she still
She's
alive?
alive. Yep. Yep. So she moved to Davis and
Okay.
is
Oh,
living in a darling cottage in my brother's backyard
oh,
and
good. So
like
she
not
has,
asking permission to do anything. She just
she's
does what delights her and it's
good.
yeah,
They have a
she's
great
doing really
co-op
well.
there. I don't know if you.
Yes, they do. Yep. I mean, and she's like very involved in her church there, and she's good,
Oh,
really good. Yeah, yeah. And they're people of faith, so she has a lot of comfort in
yeah,
in that, and it's yeah, it's good. It's good. I
that's
mean, it's
good. Well,
sad,
I think it's
but
great that
good.
she has community because that's just, also I think a big piece, especially as we age. I mean, I think it's a night and day difference. And,
Yeah. Hmm.
for my grandparents, what I saw was that they were really, really isolated,
Mm,
really isolated. And I
sure.
just saw where between their memory and their just overall well-being and mental health, it
Mhm.
just plummeted.
Yeah.
So I think being in community, whether it's church or whatever you're connected to,
Right.
it can really just make such a difference in the quality of life. So
Yes.
that's a gift that she has that. And
It
I
is.
think it probably also gives you, just knowing you,
Yeah,
also peace of mind.
totally. And my brother and his wife are beautiful people, and they are really good about helping her be informed and a part of these decisions because it's
Good.
easy for her to go from my dad taking care of everything to my brother taking care of everything, but
Mm.
he won't let her. He is he's very involved and makes sure that she's has the list of decisions she needs to make and he makes sure she makes those decisions.
And thanks for being so open as always. I love
Of
hearing that
course.
story, and it's one of those anyways, hearing her, your story, your family's story.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of those pieces where um I think that I forget how so many women still don't manage their finances.
Hi,
Yeah.
right here.
No,
right?
but
Now I
you
do,
you
but
do
I
now.
didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't even know where to start. It took me 18 months to fill out those forms for the lawyer because I didn't even know.
What to put.
Yeah, and I didn't know where to find the information.
I mean, that's where, so, part of, my podcast journey, I bring in a lot of money coaches because I think
So
that's
good.
another thing. Like my own life has been transformed by doing work in that area.
Hmm.
But I think it's very much part of like when we're thinking about, our legacy, we have to have a good relationship with money, and
Right.
most people don't. Kind of going back to, um, I think Kate Northrup says this, like what are the two kind of big lies in the collective is the lie of scarcity and the
Mm.
lie of separation. And I
Mm-hmm.
think this country like this, it's on, capitalists on overdrive or on steroids.
Right.
Like we're all swimming in this sea of we're all separate and,
Hmm.
just the scarcity
Right.
conversation. So again, going back to the tending to the garden example,
Ah.
I think tending to that garden, I mean, even for me, it's like I want to go back and start doing more money coaching, just knowing
Hmm.
that now that we have, a 2-year-old,
Right.
and I've done a lot of work in this area and it still continues to evolve, right? And then also stepping in as a business owner, right? That
Right.
also is, what
Well,
is
it's
our relationship?
and that kind of work is just like this estate plan. It's not a one and done. You're
No.
continuing to evolve, you're continuing to grow your relationship and understanding with money, and as you bring more people into the mix, it gets a little muddy. Like someone
Yes.
just walked into the pond and it's
Yes.
bringing things up, but you can get that support. And I love this podcast. I love your podcast. I love the way so many people are normalizing conversations
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
formerly seemed taboo.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And so much like when we're going through kind of, these hard, like, whether it's a crisis or just these like transitions where,
Hmm.
your parents are losing capacity or
Yeah.
declining, and, the matriarch and patriarch of the family is really kind of not able to maintain that. And the next
Yeah.
generation's coming in, we can feel so alone in it and just
Yeah.
get so caught up in, you know, our relationship,
Hmm.
myself included. And that's where it's like, no, like we are so connected, and coming to community and having conversations and bringing it to light, I think it's only for the good, really. Like there's so much
Right.
richness and learning. And again, I think that that's a lot of why I wanted to do the podcast is, turning the light on and letting people learn. Because, trust administration, it's private, obviously everything's confidential with my clients, but you can begin to see those themes. For me, that's how my brain's wired. I just begin seeing themes, over the
Right.
years. So that's been so much, I think so much of the, I don't know, it's not the fun, but kind of the,
Discovery.
yeah, the discovery. And yeah, it can be hard to put into words, right?
Right. Which is why we get to talk. So fun.
Yeah.
So fun. Oh my gosh. Okay. I could clearly talk to you all day. I love you
Yes.
so much.
I
I
love you too, Wendy.
treasure you and your beautiful work. Please tell everybody how they can find and follow you. I know you have great resources on your website as well that help people know, like, so where do I start?
Yes, yes. So, um, trustandhonor.co is my company page. If you're interested at all in the work that I'm doing and just, private professional fiduciaries, you can learn more about that on my website. I do have a good amount of information of just breaking down kind of the different hats and roles that a professional can do. So we touched upon a lot of it in this conversation. Um, and then, the Legacy of Love podcast, if you're
Yes,
interested in
yes.
more conversations like this, tune in there. And then I think the last piece is that I do have, it's called the Legacy of Love workbook, and that is free. So I believe you'll have links to
Yep.
share, but it's trustandhonor.co/worksheet. I think it's
I think
worksheet.
so. I think so too.
Trust the
Yes,
show notes, not me.
that's right. Thank you, Shannon. She's
Or
so
maybe it's
good.
workbook. That's what it is, /workbook. And really, that's whether you have an estate plan or you're like at the very beginning of your journey, you don't have one, and um, it's on your list. It can be a great kind of workbook and exercise to go through of really kind of all the pieces that we were talking about, of just being intentional and reflecting on, what we want to leave behind. And so much of that goes beyond just, assets. So,
Right. Right. Which is why I love that you are not only a legacy of love, but leading with love,
oh,
because it's so, that's what, that's the argument again around or against separateness, right? Because
yeah.
love is what connects us.
I mean, and that's ultimately, I think, why we're here,
Hmm.
is to remember that, is to know that more fully. And
Yes.
yeah, thank you for having me, Wendy. Not at all surprised at how magical this conversation's been.
You're the best. Oh my gosh. I love you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.